Recording. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and also for the interest in sharing all of your experiences. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, and then we can start about listening to your experiences. So, Rowie, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Valentina, and thanks to the IECA for putting together this great opportunity where people from all over the world can share their experiences for free without having to register to share this knowledge. We really appreciate that. Today, I have 4 amazing grassroots activists in environmental work in the Caribbean and in the US as well. And I will introduce them very, very briefly, but I'll also ask them to follow up and add anything that I may have missed. We will keep the introductions very short because they have a lot to say, and I don't want to take up that time. Plus, they're well known, and so well known, you can Google them and you can find more about them and their work and their organizations. My name is Rowie Kirby-Straker. I teach environmental communication at Wake Forest University in North Carolina. And before that, I worked at the University of Maryland College Park, where I did my doctoral studies. But before that, I worked in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Eastern Caribbean as a fisheries public education officer, and before that, an extension officer. And I have with me 3 people from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We're a multi-island country. We have Dr. Andrew Simmons, who is a Goldman Environmental Prize winner. And I know they announced the winners for this year just this week. In 1994, Dr. Simmons won that award. And he is an educator, an activist. He started an environmental organization called GEMS in 1978. And that organization was started to manage the oldest documented forest reserve in the world, the Kingsale Forest. And Dr. Simmons will talk more about that. He has worked with the United Nations. He has worked with the Commonwealth. So much to know about him. But thanks, Dr. Simmons. We also have with us Miss Katrina Collins-Coy, who started an organization called the Union Island Environmental UIE, Union Island Environmental Attackers, now Alliance in a small island in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She'll tell you about them and how small the island is. And Katrina is a mover and a shaker. She has done so much, and she has degrees and diplomas in community engaged work, leadership, and a lot more. And she has also not just worked in Union Island, but she has worked in the other islands around Myriad, Canawan, and some of the other Grenadine islands, working on water projects, turtle conservation, birding, bird management, a lot. And we also have Miss Erika Hill, who has worked for many, many years in Antigua and Barbuda, managing the largest environmental reserve, environmental reserve. Erika, I don't have your paper in front of me. I've worked with the others. Sorry about that. You'll tell us. And Erika has now taken up a position as the Caribbean lead for the Fauna and Flora. It could be Flora and Fauna International. So please bear with me with some of this, but go online and learn more about them and their work. And I want to give a special introduction to Mr. Michael Banner, who is a grassroots agriculturist here in Winston-Salem. And I was drawn to Mr. Banner and his group because it is called Island Cultures. So here in Winston-Salem, that is not close, does not surrounded by water. I have found in Mr. Banner and his organization just a refreshing drive for self-determination and self-governance. And he's a grassroots activist as well. And I'm very, very just honored to be able to have you all talk to each other and to the world about what you do, and particularly what practitioners and grassroots people on the ground need from academics. In my work in the Caribbean, I remember working with people in my practitioner life. I remember working with people from overseas who would come and take information from us and do all kinds of stuff with it. And I feel like the partnership was not a true partnership, that it was very lopsided, with academics benefiting more from organizations already stretched very thinly. And so today we'll get to hear from them. I feel I've spoken too much. So how about we begin with Dr. Simmons? Please add to that anything about yourself or your organization.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kirby Stricker. I'm happy to be part of this panel, and I just love the title, Partnership to Partnership, you know, because not all partnerships are proper partnerships, you know. And we saw that quite a lot of partnerships are lopsided and not enough input or respect and so on from both parties. In terms of, I think you did a good job putting into the introduction. I am Andrew Simmons. I've been part of the GEMS, a founder of the GEMS Progressive Community Organization for the past, this September would be 46 years. Being in an organization for 46 years is quite a long time. But I can tell you that we still have a good number of the original members still participating in the organization. And as we said, that as long as the Kingsville Forest Reserve continue to exist, in fact, the communities, there were 18 communities that we serve that are surrounded the Kingsville Forest Reserve, which is, as you heard, is the oldest documented forest reserve in the world, and it was the first experiment that was proved that clouds, the forest itself would attract clouds, and in a sense, these clouds would give you rain. So it was basically the first experiment in climate change. And during that time, in the late 1700s, the Caribbean was going through a serious problem pertaining to El Nino, and we're currently going through it now. But that was as a result of colonialism, where because of the need for sugar in the UK and Europe, that the colonial masters involved in a very serious deforestation that taking the Caribbean all up to New Orleans. So there was a terrible El Nino weather system. And what happened that the people in St. Vincent, the very area that I'm sitting in at the moment, was one of the driest area at the time. And there were quite a lot of problems. So that's how the Kingsville Forest was created. And our role for the past 46 years, working with communities involving in participatory type of research and participatory type of programming, working with communities, empowering communities, building their resilience so that they can help to protect the reserve, and not just the reserve, but St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Another, just add one thing for the introduction. GEMS itself, the organization, in the latter half of the 1988, we started a process across the Caribbean, from Dominican Republic, Cuba, Bahamas, right down to Guyana, over to Belize, where we were working with a support from UNEP to involve youth in the protection of the environment, and thus the creation of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. So I'm proud to say that I've been a co-founder up to this morning, speaking with Reggie Book and the others on some programs that we've been developing. So let me shut my mouth for a while. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simmons. Ms. Collins Coy, it's your turn. We can't hear you. Great,
Let me just
thanks.
a pleasant good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to be on this platform. And I'm familiar with a few faces here. Erika, just saying hello from hot Grenadines, Union Island. And my good friend just spoke a while ago. I haven't seen you in ages.
I will see you for a long time too.
But it's good to see you, Dr. Simmons. It's really good to see you for a long time. And to be honest, you have not really aged, to be honest.
Wow.
But nevertheless, I'm hoping still that we can have a face-to-face meet-up one of these days and catch up from old-time days.
Definitely.
Yes, so like I said from before, my name is Katrina Coy. I'm the founder and director of the Union Island Environmental Alliance, formerly known as the Attackers. For over 2 decades now, UIA has been on the forefront of executing conservation and sustainable development projects on Union Island. Our main areas of focus include reducing litter, ensuring water security, conserving critical endangered species such as the Union Island gecko. Probably most of you have heard of it. The Union Island gecko is found only here, right here in the Grenadines, found no other place else more than here. And we also manage the forest reserve, which is the Chatham Bay area where the species are located. Some of our notable achievements include significant improvement in water management, waste management, including ending the practice of burning of garbage at the Clifton dump, because many years ago, people used to burn garbage, and sometimes it would take days and people would have problems. So because we have created awareness, having stakeholder consultation on all of that, that has finally come to a stop. And we have been promoting plastic reduction through Canvas shopping bag initiative, because we have went to the stores on many occasions and asked them to cut back of the number of plastic bags they have been producing and provide people with a 5% if they do return these Canvas shopping bags. In addition, we have made strides in water infrastructure, distributing over 486,000 gallons of water storage capacity across the island, which is Union Island, myriad, and Canawan. And we have also provided where we renovated water catchment, which is the concrete catchment, also on Union Island and myriad at the primary school. So we also do that on many government buildings. Looking back at our recent as in 2022, UIA was and still is poised for growth. At the time, we are facing with significant challenges as we lack a physical base of operation and a sustainable revenue streams. Yet we are seeking to establish a dedicated office space that will not only support our expansion project, but also serve as a hub for green technology and demonstrate project accommodation for visitors and rental for workshop and conferences. Because here on Union Island, we only have one conference office, which is located at the Union Island Tourist Board, and is very small. So now we are proud to say that this has come to fruition. Now we have an office. This strategic step has enhanced our local presence, ensuring financial sustainability, having provided a stable operational base for impact work in our community by development and environmental conservation. And as the director of the organization, my responsibilities including overseeing general administration, convening meeting, approving release by the public relation officer, and serve as the authorized spokesperson for the environmental committee. And because of that, and all of the work we have done so far, I can truly say that we have come a long way, and I'm proud of the success and for what we have done so far within our community of Union Island and throughout the rest of the Grenadines Island.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Can you just tell the audience the population of Union Island, the population of Myro, and of Canawan, those 3 islands in which you work? Unmute. We want to unmute? Yes.
People keep migrating and coming here for work and all of that. We just say by now, it still can be 2,000 and some. So we normally estimate it to be approximately 3,000.
So about 3,000 in residents on Union Island. How about Myro and Canawan?
Myro is 250 according to the last statistic, and Canawan was 1,000 and some. If by now it's almost supposed to be 2,000 and some, close to Union Island.
Yeah. So one island is just about 200, a little over 200 people, one between 2,000 to 3,000. And then the other one, 1,000, 300, 1,000, and about 2,500 to 3,000. These are very small islands. And so we really appreciate you sharing that. And also you can only get to Myro by boat.
Yes,
and so there's a lot of resources to stretch by plane. Yes, that's true. All right, well, thanks for sharing that. And so, Ms. Hale, IECA, can you tell us a bit about yourself, whatever you want to add, and about your organizations?
Okay,
I know you
thank you so much. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is IECA, and I am the outgoing executive director for the Environmental Awareness Group in Antigua and Barbuda. So EAG is Antigua and Barbuda's longest standing environmental NGO working on for the benefit of people and wildlife since 1989. And we have the focus of the organization has kind of always been a bit of 2 things. It's really been a lot about how can we save critically endangered endemic species while rewilding the habitats and the ecosystems where they exist, but also how can we make people fall in love with them? How can we make people fall in love with the environment? Because we recognize that there is a direct correlation between people's love for a thing and their desire to take care of it. And that's particularly important to us because we do have a particularly endangered endemic snake. And the truth is, people don't love snakes. The Antiguans aren't excited about it. People generally think that snakes are dangerous. However, ours is non-venomous and I would say adorable. So therefore, definitely in need of protecting just for its cuteness alone. But what we've been trying to do is we've brought that species from the brink of extinction. When we started our work, there were 50 individuals found in the world, and then that number moved up all the way to 1,200 through our rewilding efforts. But in a recent census, we actually saw that the numbers have now dropped to just below 400. And we're seeing that this is as a result of continued pressures on their natural habitat, which is on our offshore islands. Now, EAG has specifically been kind of focused on 3 main programs. And so I kind of touched a little bit on our first program, which focuses on the Antiguan racer Our second program focuses on the critically endangered sea turtles, and our third program focuses on a single island that's a mile long, where we can find 3 endemic species. So 3 species you can find nowhere else in the world, and has 1% of the world's brown rubies located on it, which is Redonda. And all of our programs are very much focused on, first, let's focus, like zero focus in on a species, see how we can improve its life. If we can improve it, then all the other things we've seen kind of immediately research around it. So once you take care of the snake, you see birds come back to the island, you see lizards, you see vegetation. It's the same thing once you take care of the critically endangered species on Redonda. The population of those species, actually, it kind of, they increase to the point that it doesn't make sense scientifically. So within a number of years, the island was from one starting to look like a moonscape and was crumbling into the sea, and now has so much grass, so much vegetation on it that my former team actually has problems going to the island, because they're just like, we don't know where to walk anymore because we can't see the ground. It's so covered in vegetation. So what I would say is that the work that we've done has been, it is central to its success is partnership. And so this discussion for us is very interesting, because there's nothing that you can do within the environmental space without working with someone else. And so I'm very interested in hearing from my colleagues how they have worked with researchers, and also sharing the experience of the EAG in working with researchers, and how we intend to catalyze that action a little later in coming years.
That's great. Thank you. That's a lovely success story about what you have done with your group to turn around Redonda. We need those success stories as well. And so now, Mr. Banner, if you can share a little bit more about yourself and the island and what you and your organization have been doing.
Thank you, Rowie. Greetings to everyone from the island community, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I will start off saying our community is not an actual island, but we have defined ourselves as an island because we've been cut off from so many resources. We had like a main street that was an artery to our community that was cut off and turned to a highway exit. So that really bogged down the traffic on the island, and it made us more of a destination instead of a pass-through. So we're using that to build something positive out of it. And we used agriculture or grassroots growing as a means of restoring value and building some economy in our community, and also making us more relevant, because most time, you know, in our communities, they just want to highlight the downtrodden and the crimes and things of that nature. But now we have something that doesn't take a lot of resources to get, you know, some sprouts and, you know, turn into a plant and make some vegetation. So we've taken this low resource and used our ingenuity and our energy to put ourselves on the map. So that's what I would say that I myself and our community is into, or our organization is into, radically creating space and placemaking, turning something that was rags into something that's rich. Our relationship with, are we talking about the relationship yet? Or
Yes, you can definitely start and move into that. Yeah.
Okay.
So as IECA mentioned, that today we want to talk a little bit about what you want from academics, because I know a lot of universities or just student researchers reach out to all your organizations to partner up. And a lot of times it's not really partnering up. They need something And you can briefly talk about your experiences with that. But today I would really love to hear from each of you, what is it you need and how you see us as academics moving forward in partnership. How would you like to see these partnerships change? So feel free to go ahead, Michael.
Okay. Well, I would first of all, I commend you in your, your willingness and your plasticity and able to reach us in ways that a lot of other universities have not been able to reach us and help us achieve our means. Putting the needs of the community first, but at the same time having this rigor that is implemented from college, the university, that you had to jump through several hoops and sign on with the bureaucracy. So that's been a challenge. But I love the fact that regardless of anything and everything, we've been finding means to get the resources back to the community. So I feel like we're beating the path while raising the narrative. Because the same funds that they're using to help us put these things forward are the same funds that are really sustaining this narrative of resilience, grassroots, autonomy, sovereignty. These colleges are unknowingly probably funding a lot of this. Will eventually be an exodus from poverty. So I love that aspect. But I would say, partnership in general has been kind of tough for the island community because we had to come right off and say that we're a community that builds in a silo, and most of the the other people, they don't like when you start saying you're building in a silo, because they want to be able to tap into your genius, your community genius. They want to be all inclusive, not so they can share resources necessarily, but so they can tap into our brain power and be the first to try to premiere your ideas in their community that they're already set up and structured with infrastructure to put those things on. So we've been very selective. We've taken a slower ascension because we didn't want to rely on foundation dollars or these partnerships to to build us up. So it's been very rootsy. I think it's been good in helping us preserve our identity, and it's paying and compound interest now because the community trusts us. We've had numerous opportunities to sell them out, but we've continued to advocate, for justice for our community by not being compromised. That puts us in a leadership position. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And in my experience with you, I've learned a lot, because I remember when I first approached your organization, you made me meet the elders in the community. I had to go and talk to them, and they interviewed me, quizzed me a lot. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And I loved that your organization insisted that I fit into what you were already doing. Yes, you have good ideas what you want to research, and you have to research, and you have to publish and do all these things, but here's what we are doing. Let's see if we can have some common ground, and we will tell you how you go about this. And I have been learning with you. It has been slow, like you said, which is not, doesn't fit well with this academic speed of productivity. But like you say, building those relationships is really important, and it makes for a more, tenuous relationship, something that's stronger. Probably not the right word, but something that's stronger and longer lasting. And so I want to thank you all for that. And you're right about people wanting to tap in, but although that's not my intention, I just learned from you so much. And even in that, I realize where that lopsidedness of the information is too, right? What I'm bringing to you is little in contrast to what I gain. But I love that you insist on having several meetings and making sure that people in the community also get to decide if they want to work with me, right? Even though you're representing the community. So thank you very much for that. But I would love to hear from the others. So whoever is ready, you can unmute and start share.
Yeah, what I would like to do is to share two experiences, different periods in terms of experience. One from 1988 to 1996, and the other from 2001, 2002 to present. So the first experience, in terms of there was a collaborator, the Island Resources Foundation. So GEMS, we were working with that organization in between 1986 to about 1996. And what we've done, they work with us, and they were not in any position to assist us in terms of training, because that was one of our major needs, basically to build the capacity of members to get them into university level, because we are from a very poor community itself. And so what they've done, they were more or less a deal. I wouldn't call it that. Well, it's more or less like a deal with American University in Washington. So what we would do with GEMS, we would host their students, postgraduate students, and through them, other students from different universities in the city, in the capital. We would host them in St. Vincent. And they would, in turn, I think the deal what we did with them, that they would provide us with an amount of postgraduate scholarships. So we have a number of persons, about 6 to 8 persons, from the organization. But what we did, because we were part of the National Youth Council at the time, we opened and we were working with a number of other organizations across the country. We provide opportunities for these young persons to access university level training. Some of them full scholarships, most were part-time scholarships. So that was just one experience. But in terms of that collaboration, it was loose. There wasn't anything specifics in terms of what the training would be in terms of what is available. And so what we did, if there's some training exists, bachelor's levels, master's levels, we would try to get our members or the organizations that we work with in St. Vincent to access those trainings. So that's basically one level of the relationship was more or less loose, in terms that the organization, the Island Resource Foundation, that was headed by Dr. Towle, they would provide us with things like typewriter, electronics typewriter, and other type of training, on-the-ground training in St. Vincent. So that was one type of training, or one type of capacity building, one type of partnership. The other partnership now is with doctorate institutions, and I think for me that's towards the arrangement with the work that we did, collaboration with Wake Forest is completely different. You know, it's one that is based on respect, one that is based on valuing the institutions, the capacity that are available, and one that is also based on moving the organization forward in terms of enhancing the capacities within the organizations, not just you know, at university level training, of which we would come to later, but in terms of building the research capacity on the ground. For example, we completed 2 major research. We completed one, and we're in the process of doing another one, which should finish anytime now, right, Doctor? Yes, where we, in a sense, were able to hire, well, Pat as a volunteer that would work with institutions and persons from across the country, looking at the center managers for the volcanic, the eruption, because we are prone to not just climate change in St. Vincent impacts, but also calamities such as the volcanic eruption. So that was an excellent piece of research. And when we talk to a number of the persons on the ground, they're extremely satisfied, because the information that they would not give us as locals, they were able to provide that information to, you know, to at the other level. The other one is where we currently in the process of completing some research on the impacts of climate change in terms of to gather perceptions of people from about 6 communities, but we divided into 4 groups. And coming out of that, we were able to enhance the capacity of the remunerators. Persons are now fully trained in terms of going into these communities to collect data now and in the future, because we now started another set of training and so on, which we would be using some of these same persons or bring them together to train persons across the country. And so for me, that was extremely important in terms of building the capacity. So as I said, that, you know, it's a win-win putting into the work that we're doing with Wake Forest. But during that period of time between 1996 right up to current time, what we were able to do in GEMS is to build the research capacity of within the organization itself. So we have persons at a number of different levels who can develop these the survey instruments and so on, carry out the survey instruments and administer the survey. And these surveys, we also specialize in what you call participatory type models and type of research and so on. So we use, you know, what we call popular theater, which and what we call cultural moonlight weeks, in terms of building on the experiences of communities and people and using drums, drum, calypso music, reggae, and music within the community as a way of mobilizing communities for action. And at the same time, we collect data from these communities. And it's something that is, you know, well, from my research, it's well documented and being used. And I also want to say, you know, many thanks to Dr. Kirby Stricker for, you know, building that confidence within the organization and helping to build that capacity. And we know that this is just the beginning of the work that we have to do. Yes. So basically now we're in a position where, and this is something that we need to discuss later, Dr. Kirby, where you have agencies, there were 3 agencies with funds that, you know, would come to the organization, and I would talk about them a bit later in terms of where you can access the funding to do the type of research, the participatory type of research that you want, but also at the same time you build the capacity, the resilience within these communities so that the people would be empowered to deal with climate change and other development calamities within the future.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Simmons. You're right about that with the capacity building, and James was able to say, well, yes, you have these ideas, let's work on it together. We had to do some amendments for the institutional review board, because the method that I had in mind, the organization said, no, this is we want to go door to door with it, because these are the research questions we are trying to answer. So even with that, going back to what Mr. Banner said about it being a slow process, but at the end of the day, we're all working together and learning from each other in terms of research, because not because we're at the university means that we're the only people who know about research. So as we work with you to build that capacity, you are also building my capacity to learn how to work within communities. And so I think that's a nice mutuality there. Well, Ms. Hale has to leave, and I see somebody in the chat has said, thanks for sharing these experiences. But Ms. Hale, yes. Well, if you can share, yes, please take the time you need to share with us. And you had a list of the questions, so just go ahead and talk like what Dr. Simmons did.
Yeah, so what I found interesting about what Dr. Simmons was referring to was like, this is very community-led kind of conservation action, which interestingly is no longer EAG's model. So when we first started in the 80s and well, in the 90s, and our mode of work was very much community-driven. At this point now in our history, we've been able instead to attract young ecologists and biologists to our organization. So I think it's interesting to see how an organization can shift. And so because of the shift of the organization itself being experts in not just in the traditional knowledge and the community aspect, it's that they've gone off and they've studied this and they understand how to collect data. What we're seeing is that the level of data that's collected is far more robust than what we used to have. Because trust me, for what I saw, especially when I came in, was I think when there are not enough systems within NGOs for the management of data, it's possible to collect the data, but not have a central place where it's kept and stored and safeguarded. Safeguarding data takes a lot of work. But what we have found in our relationship now with researchers is kind of the same. It's interesting that despite the fact that you are now experts, you're still in the position of telling people, okay, I'm really excited to have you come and visit us. However, these are the things that we want you to work along with us. And the reason why that always has to be a key focus for us is, while we may be able to go out and do really significant work, there is so much extra resources that are needed to support somebody who's doing something that has nothing to do with what you want to do. And even when the person is doing the work that you want to do, it still takes additional resources. So what we at EAG have been really looking at is how can our relationship with universities, with researchers, be beneficial, not just from the standpoint of collecting the data, but be financially beneficial. So I've seen the model for research even in Kenya, where they, we have the beautiful megafauna and everybody's so excited to go out and track lions and elephants and all of that. If you as a researcher are interested in doing research with them, you pay for that experience. And I think that is a lot of where the Caribbean needs to go in terms of understanding the value of our data, understanding the value of our ecosystems, and being very open about, yes, I would love for you to come. Based on the Nagoya protocol, I know what the access and benefit sharing protocols are going to be. So you're not going to go away with the data and say that you just collected it on your own. No, you were supported by a local NGO. You have given this data to the local NGO, but also you have given that local NGO the funding that is needed to continue to support them beyond the scope of your research. Because I don't know about any of the other organizations here, but EAG is completely donor dependent. And so if the time is given to a researcher, it means then that the projects that they would have been implementing are now not being implemented because I got to take you out. I've got to train you. I've got to explain things to you. I've got to take the time to look at your data and make sure it's being collected correctly. All of that has a cost. And so I think there needs to be that strong understanding as well about who we are in the space of research and how others need to come into the space and how we welcome them in. So I appreciate how both Dr. Simmons and I see his name was Magneto, but both of you have kind of welcomed in organizations and made sure, look, you're collecting data based on what I want, but also I think it's important that there is that financial contribution that allows for NGOs to continue to do the work that they need to do. The other thing that I would mention is that, one of the things that I would like to see from universities, both within the Caribbean and the wider world, is assistance with developing programmatic work that supports our continued environmental conservation. So what does that really mean? EAG has been doing a lot of education programs for 30 years, right? And one of the things that we're looking at is we look at the value of what we're offering to people. We train people in-house in class, and then we take them out into the field so that they have great field experience. How can we then develop that as a strong curriculum? That is something that somebody who could come in, they do the training with us, they do the exercises with us, they go, they collect the data and all of that, and then they can use that experience and it be counted as credits at universities wherever they go. How can the experience with NGOs be transformed beyond the scope of a feel-good activity, of a saviorism, a white saviorism that comes in to come in and help, I need to help you. No, now that you've come in and you've done this work that is needed, you've contributed to wider science, but now how does it really benefit the organization to stand at a place where they can say, but it's a accredited program, it is going to build up your resume as an individual more than just beyond a volunteer experience. So I think that's a way that I would love to see universities and research kind of step into this space with environmental NGOs. And maybe I just stand from a place of, I think that there's so much power in who we are and what we're offering as grassroots organizations, as NGOs, that it needs to be valued far higher than it traditionally is. And that's my last point. I'm gonna be quiet now.
Those are excellent, excellent points. And one of the things I want to suggest to academics as an academic is in what you're saying about providing resources so that the NGOs, the groups we're working with, can continue to do their work beyond our little research project. When we are doing our grants, we should write in those funds. We often write in funds for the equipment, for this, for that, to participant incentives. Well, how about writing in for equipment that you need to carry this work on, and for you know, time that you're spending doing all of this, materials for your other programs. The way I see it, it just benefits us even more, which we shouldn't always be thinking about ourselves, but that's a justification we can give to the funding agencies who fund the research. There's so much stipulation about what you can use money for. You can use it for this, but you can't use it for that. And when it comes to working across countries, international, there are even more stipulations. You can't take this money from the US and use it for that in the Caribbean. So we need to also advocate within our own circles here in academia about changing some of those stipulations, you know, so that, you know, once you're doing a grant, not only you have to give the information back and all those things that we're talking about now, but money has to be in it for the programs of the organization beyond your project. And I think that's a responsibility that we need to take seriously. I feel like it's a responsibility for all the things that have been extracted over centuries from communities. And the other part about the programmatic development, I think the study abroad programs at universities can look into that. And sometimes from our end, we develop courses. Like right now, I have a course going to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and a lot of it is done with the Union Island Environmental Alliance, but it's done from our end. How about we take your course that you developed and pay you? So I think that was a great recommendation to Ms. Hill. Did you have anything else to add before you go?
Unfortunately, no, I'm really looking forward to the recording because I know that there's some really rich stories that are going to come out of this. I'm very excited about not just the discussion, but I think what happens next. So please keep me in the loop.
Yes, then thank you very, very much for
Give
your
my
time.
regards to Kevin Lindsley.
Ah, I will.
Yeah, the last time I saw him, it was 92.
No.
Yes, yes.
He's still very much a part of the EAG, and
Okay,
he's
give him my
Antigua
regards.
and
Yeah.
Barbuda's leading botanist. So great person. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. And thanks for sharing too about how people within your community, they themselves are going off to university, studying and bringing the skills back, the technical skills back. And who better to do that, right, than people with a connection to the work, who are doing it for, you know, for more internal motivation. So thank you kindly, and best wishes with all your work. And yes, take care. Thanks. And Annabella, thank you very much, Carvalho. It's probably Dr. Carvalho.
Yes.
Who's
Hi,
Dr. Carvalho?
sorry.
Did you want to ask anything? Thanks for being here, and sorry for not recognizing you before.
No problem. Sorry for not turning on my camera or the sound because I'm on the move. So
No
unfortunately
problem.
coincided with having to be in public transport, and it's not the best conditions to participate, but I still managed to listen to your thoughts about these collaborations, and yeah, thank you very much for all you shared. Good
All
luck.
right. Yes, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Yes. And now we'll give the Zoom mic to Miss Coy from Union Island.
On our end, Working researchers and collaborators from college and universities over the past 3 years has been highly rewarding, a rewarding experience for our team. We have the opportunity to provide logistical and organizational support to visiting universities like the Wake Forest University and the South Florida University. And the South Florida University will be here next month from the 3rd of June to the 17th of June. They would normally come in and, they would go on hiking, learn about the Yunan Island gecko, do some dives, checks our reef to make sure they're still intact, and then provide data information. Right now, we are waiting on the fisheries just to give us a permit. So at least when they come to do the data every year, the data can stay here and people can get access to those information. Because one of the things that I'm always worried about is for people coming in, getting the information, and then at the end of the day, who get credited when they get the information from here? They're on your island. You're providing all the groundwork. You're preparing all the things that they need done. And then at the end of the day, when you would have probably go back to some of the information, you wonder, where is the organization that was involved with these things? So sometimes, and that is why Arika's point was very important, because I mean, you do research, you do this, you do that. And one of the things that I always say that I like to see, it's good to have these people come in and then the organization gain some admin money from it. So at least they will be able to sustain themselves. But at the end of the day, it's like, where do we exchange our ideas? Where do we exchange our program? And I think I discussed that with Dr. Rowley from before. We should have some exchange program where and organize like a team visit here and a team from here visit back there. And when you do these exchange, you would find that both parties would be a win-win, because each organization or each department would learn from each other. And for me, I find that somebody who started from sometime an interesting level, because when I think back of how this organization started, when you hear the stories of others, how they really started their program, you ask yourself, boy, we've come so far. This is where we were, and this is where we are now. Because this organization for us has started since the 8th of November, 1999, and we are in existence today. And after 24 years of operation, we now get our own base where we can actually sit in an office and feel comfortable. But the other thing is that it's good to have a building, but then when you have nothing in it, you get money to build a building, but then when you cannot even have a chair or a desk to actually have in the building to make sure you can make your guests feel more accommodative, you ask yourself questions, boy, so where do we go from here? So sometimes these are some of the challenges that we face, but our interaction with researchers have allowed us to contribute directly to their academic project and initiative, facilitating smooth operation and effective project management. And what we realize is that collaborating with the team also help us to understand what is it we are missing and how important our work on the ground is. And then the kind of rich information that you produce, you amaze yourself sometimes. And then when you really look at it this way, by collaborating, you realize that it will provide a holistic approach and a better perspective when it comes to education and creating awareness. And through this experience, I discover that, it also helps us with strong communication skills, because it helps you to communicate more on a different level. Now we know we have social media platform, and like Zoom. If COVID didn't happen, maybe people would not realize, well, you could actually use Zoom to connect with various people around the world, and people who you can learn something from, who can even help strengthen your organization. And that's the reason why our enthusiasm and commitment to this excellent drive would pursue us further opportunities to collaborate with more researchers, more university. Because for me, I don't need like one university on the ground. I think if we have probably 4 per year would be very good for Yunan Island. Because you see, Yunan Island depend on tourism and fishing for survival. And when you have like 3 to 4 or 5 months in a year for tourism, you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen for the remainder of the year? Because what you would have earned for those few months when it comes to tourism, you now have to stretch it to go into the entire year. And then now it puts some strain on some people's livelihood, on families who are struggling with children and all of these things. And that's the reason why, we try to make it as best as possible that when people come in and they share the information, we should see that our information is being credited, so you can know that, definitely Union Environmental Alliance has been a great team to work with. But we don't need the work to just stay there, but we need to actually share in each other experience so we can build each other at the end of the day. And that's why I said I'm very excited to really work with Wake Forest University and South Florida University. And I'm hoping that, that it will not just stay here, but it will continue for more years to come, that somebody would even think about, why don't I go to Union Island and do my thesis on the Union Island gecko? Why don't I choose something else from Union Island? Because I'm sure if you ask so many people if they have ever heard about Union Island, they may tell you not really. And if you actually go on the map, might be see a little dot if you see anything at all. So I believe in these circles that we share information. If we can, build more network and we make ourselves be known out there. I think because of this and hearing our voices heard, I believe even within our communities can be better places, and also people will become even more environmentally conscious and share more experiences. So as we grow and learn from each other, it can strengthen each organization and for others out there as time goes by.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for that, Miss Coy. And I remember you sharing the stories of working from your own home a lot, using a lot of funds from your own pocket. And I'm happy that you have a building now, but you're right. As we go back to what Miss Hill said, if the people who work with you can find ways to make sure that you don't have you got a building, that it's not empty. How can I in my work build in or even do a joint grant with you that doesn't, may not be exactly my research, but it's more aligned with what you would like. How can we do that, but get some kind of grant that does also fund other things? Because I have tried to look for grants that fund infrastructure, physical infrastructure. You might find some that fund like technological stuff, but physical infrastructure, no, like where do they think you're working from? You're working from your home. And that's if for lots of places, people don't even own their own homes, or they're working, they're doing other things. But you're very right about that. And maybe working on some MOUs or partnership agreements within universities as well. But the idea you're saying about promoting what you have to universities, that's also something that that can work. For example, here I started coming to Union Island, just me first with a few people from my department, and now we have people from 2 and 3 other departments that are also involved, and they too can do grants. So I love the idea of spreading or extending the work to other departments in the same universities, but also through these network sharing, so that we work together. If you really think about it, that would be lovely, right? If University of South Florida is there, Wake at the same time, not to take too much from your resources, making sure it is well funded for you. But look at how much, look at the opportunities you're providing for us to learn from each other as well. So we'll definitely continue to work together and push to make sure that you get some funds for your infrastructure, which you need. But Mr. Banner, we would love to hear some more from you. We have about 8 minutes left, I'd say. So feel free to share any ideas you have about what more you would like to see from the researchers who approach your organization.
Yeah, I think I would like to lift up the whole, I like how you came right in and helped me achieve getting the IRB, Institutional Review Board certification, so that, community can be signed on with publications that can reach audiences that some of our grassroots renderings is not going to reach. And trying to make that shift to create our own algorithm. I know social media is real dominant, but I think it's a way that the validity of the researchers and the institutions they represent many times, I think it's a way that we could get this knowledge out to the mainstream outside of the journals. So I think that's kind of where I see a gap, not necessarily a gap, but a opportunity to, a lot of people are going to be paying attention during the election year over here in the U.S. So, a lot of people are going to be looking at agendas and, platforms. So if we can get a lot of this information out to the people and some of these stories, these narratives out, it can help us build a political base. And not political in the sense of voting, but political in the sense of being informed and able to weigh in on policy making and priorities. So that's kind of where I see it, trying to build that political strength base.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. Those are very important points, because the reason for these partnerships is to make change. And a big part of that is at the policy level, the change at the policy level. So thanks for reminding us about that and reminding us of the need for community activists and partners to be a part of the dissemination of the information collected. Yes, through journals, but also, like you said, through journals that reach more people, that reach other practitioners in other places, and not just in the journals for the scientists and the academics. So that's a really important point. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Simmons.
Yes, I think what we have to look at in terms of how we package these projects, these activities, and so on. For example, Katrina, you have a building without the necessary equipment and so on. Wake Forest, you have the power of the research, your whole institutional capacity behind. And the reason I said that there are some funds, seem like a considerable amount of money now in the Caribbean through, I think, Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, which would be accessing about $24 million US from the German government. There is also Canary, which has a capacity of about 26 million US dollars. So what we may have to do in terms of how do we partner, how Union Island Alliance, how GEMS, how Wake Forest in terms of develop a type of partnership that will cover the research, because if you submit a project to them and you tell them this is research, they would not fund it. they would say, no, 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 this is outside of our line. But we know that they're looking at issues pertaining to climate change, biodiversity, and so on. So we have to be smart in terms of how we move forward, how we approach the issue of project development in terms of how do we package them, and in terms of moving forward. Katrina, I know you doing some excellent work in Union Island, and let me say that so the thing is, how do you work with, there's an institution in Myro, an organization in Myro, small. They participated in some of the training that I run at the University of the West Indies Global Campus over the past 3-4 months. How do we, involve them in terms of, so you partner with them in a Southern Grenadines project, so with support from Wake Forest, and you develop a project proposal and try to access maybe 150, 250,000 US dollars, and so that you can cover the things that you want to do while, Wake Forest provide the support in terms of the research capacity, and while you get some money to do the work that you're doing. And the people from Myro, I know that they're involved in coral reef, mangrove, and I know you're involved in some of the same things too. So these are some of the approach that we need to look at. Just a week ago, I met with the people from the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and I should say that I was one of the architects in terms of setting up that fund in 2007, 2008, 2009. And 2009, we went to Germany. And in one night, we raised over $20 million in Germany through the Nature Conservancy. So they would be launching a program, they're funding in August, and they would be calling for projects. So this would be something that we need to look at in terms of how do we partnership in terms of moving forward. The Canary project, they would be also looking for funding, looking for new project concept, new projects, and so on. And you can get a small grant for up to 50,000, which will cover some of the project, quite a lot of the projects that you're doing, up to 1.5 million if you decide to work in partnership with a number of organizations. So these are some of the approach that I'm, looking at, that I'm discussing in the next 2 weeks. We're hoping to meet at UB to have some discussions. And what I would do, I would try to ask Chris Ashton to extend an invitation to you and your organization to participate in that project. So I think there are a number of good things moving forward. My only problem is that, well, it's not a problem. I think in the Caribbean, and there haven't been enough research in terms of these Caribbean institutions. I call them a kind of bourgeois institutions, the colleges and universities, only few of them that would work with communities. The UWI, they're moving that forward in terms of work with support from the Global Environment Facility, small grants program, in terms of doing that work, but not enough being done in the Caribbean in terms of working with institutions, NGOs, civil society organizations moving forward. So again, hats off to Wake Forest, to you specifically, Dr. Corby Straker, for taking this initiative. And I think what we need to do would be to build on it, expand it, and make it, in a sense, Caribbean and even wider in terms of our brothers from the island.
Dr. Singers, let me just raise an important point, which, sometimes I find that many, I should say, donors shy away from. Now, you have like a lot of grassroots organization start from bottom up, have a bottom up approach. But you know,
Yeah.
sometimes when you look at these grant funding, they make them so technical. Sometimes you ask, and one of the challenge really in organization is that having a stable person to do actually right funding.
Right, the
That has
project,
been
yes.
one of the challenge really within organization to access funds. You may want to do the project, you may want to take the opportunity, but to have actually somebody writing the proposal is really, really a challenge. And when sometimes you look at the proposal document, not that you don't want to take a look at it, you know, but when you see the type of work that you do within your organization on the ground, you see most of them are interested in like doing more in report rather than the actual work on the ground. And I've realized that based on the communities that you live in, the challenges are even vast, more different. Because like in our community right now, people have gotten so used to, boy, they're having a consultation meeting coming up. And then when they're looking for a crowd for people to come up, you hear people say, man, I'm tired of sitting in these meetings. And then
you
when
guys been having plenty in Union Island, consultations,
yes,
consultations.
exactly. And then
Sorry,
nothing,
yeah.
and then nothing comes from it at the ending of the day. And you know, and this is one really, really a challenge for us living down in the Grenadines, so from the mainland. And then I like the point where you say that, oh, you know, we should try to get NGOs, civil society, community organization to be more part of what is really happening, because most of the time we are left out. We have no idea of what's happening until sometimes the date gone for is close to go before some of these things to be a part of workshop, to be a part of this. And that's why like I like Jeff small grant program, because they're really for grassroots organization who would want to write a project for like $50,000 to do a project within their community. So I like the point that you make, and I really compliment what you said. And if we can really look more, and I like where you said you're having conversation with CBF and West Indies University. So I mean, coming back to some of these small lands would be great, and to involve them in a lot of the things that is been happening really.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both very much. I appreciate those points, because even from island cultures, we have talked about this too. Remember, Mr. Banner, about how much work it takes. Mr. Banner has a colleague who doesn't like those small grants. They take so much out of you for in the applying and the work. It doesn't mean you're getting it. It's not like they say, giving you this grant for sure. You apply and you may not get it. And if you get it, then there's a lot of reporting and all of that. And you don't have a grant writer, right? The big organizations might have this. So while, like Dr. Simmons says, we work to frame what we're doing so we can get the money to do what you need to get done, we also have to advocate for these agencies to change the way that they do funding. And I think by having people who actually have worked on the ground in those organizations, so them also diversifying their management with people who know how difficult this is to make some of those changes. And of course, universities advocating for some of these changes within their own systems. I think that's very, very, very important, because I sometimes wonder how, you know, Dr. Simmons and Mr. Banner and Katrina, Miss Coy, where you sleep. Like, when do you sleep?
Well, I think let me just add one of the things. We've been putting quite a lot of pressure on the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and I think we may have to extend that to Canary. It's for them, we got them to agree, the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. So some of your pains would be off a bit, Katrina, for them to provide up to $10,000 to pay someone to work with an organization or a group of organizations
That
to
would be
develop once you have a good project concept.
yes.
And at the University of the West Indies global campus, that I usually work with Chris Ashton to train people how to develop fundable project concepts. So this would be something that if you send something to Chris, check Chris Ashton. If you have a concept that we could look at it, we could give you feedback and so on, because we want to do that before the call would be in August for funding.
Because
And
right now we have a proposal pending, not to cut you. And
right.
even right now, this Sigasum, I was wondering why they're taking so long. I know the UNDP has a project to do. And this is part of the problem we're having. Those hotels on the waterfront there suffers because from the time people smell Sigasum, they don't want to come here. And then we here inhaling it, getting bad feelings, feeling so bad because everything is just right in our front area, which is the water, the Clifton waterfront, which is the commercial area. And then you're in the health center, you're in the hospital, you're smelling it even up there, and it's terrible. And I'm asking myself, when is it these people are gonna get it right? Because when I look at it really, the people who are really putting these templates or applications together, they're not on the ground, they don't understand what is happening on the ground. They put a template together and expect you now to like understand the template and put in information, while we know that when you're doing a proposal, it's supposed to be smart, measurable, and all these things. But then you have to look at the factor, which the community that is applying, the country that is applying, what it is like there. So sometimes they look at it, they're in the office, they really don't know what's going on the ground. And that's the reason why I told people on many occasions, you add a picture to your proposal, because pictures tell a lot of story. And I really compliment what you said, Dr. Simmons. If it's going to take the headache off where they're going to employ somebody or pay someone to help organization, really with big proposal, that would be great. And that would really take the group to a next level, which would be very good.
Okay, let me throw something out to you. If you can get somebody, one of these small places, to give me somewhere to sleep for 2 nights, I would come and run a workshop, train your people to, I think within 2 days, we should be able to prepare 2 afternoons to prepare a good project concept that is fundable. So at least this is something
Please
that
send me back your number, and trust me, I'm going to take you up on that offer. And
yes, I'll come and do it.
Place somewhere to sleep. Place to stay is not a problem. Food to eat is not a problem. Just say the word.
I'd come. Okay, I would send it to, I don't have it, I'd send Roy. If you can send my number, the WhatsApp.
Dr. Kobe would send it to me.
Yes. I definitely will. Yes.
Tangible.
Yes, thanks. And I love how this has ended. Mr. Banner has stepped out, but I love how it has ended, because although we're talking about partnerships with grassroots and academia, we have ended showing that the strength is partnerships among the different grassroots organizations. I love that very, very much. And so thank you for your time, Valentina. Thank you so very much for staying with us and making sure that everything worked well. We really, really appreciate you and your time. I see Mr. Bannerhead said here in the box, he said, I'm scheduled to be in another meeting, so he had to pop off. And he said he wants to stay in contact with all of you, and I can do that. I can facilitate sharing that information. Excellent. And he said he definitely wants to learn more about Union Island. That's
wonderful.
great.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And yes, great. And Valentina, thanks to you again and the IECA. I know this took a lot of work, but it was so amazing, so amazing.
And I just want to say that I feel very honored to have witnessed this session. It was inspiring, and I think many times when you're a researcher and even a practitioner, you just need to sit and listen. And So I'm taking this as a message, and I will share also the recording when it's available with all of you, because it's very insightful discussion that it was here today. And thank you very much, and everybody.
Yes.
Thank you
Let's
very much.
continue building these relationships and making them tenacious, not tenuous. Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Blessings, everybody.
Okay, all